Luxury vehicles lined the curb outside one of the city's most exclusive private restaurants. Men in expensive suits stood in small groups discussing investments, partnerships, and future deals. Laughter came. Easily. Everyone seemed eager to impress someone. Leo stepped out onto the sidewalk, barely listening to the conversations around him. His mind was already moving toward tomorrow's schedule. Another meeting, another contract, another room full of people who measured success by numbers. As he adjusted his coat and started toward his waiting vehicle, a voice drifted across the street. Soft, amused, completely out of place. "Look at these rich folks walking like their shoes got bodyguards." A few nearby people ignored the comment. One man rolled his eyes. Another woman shook her head and kept walking. But Leo stopped. His entire body went still. For a second, the traffic noise seemed far away. That voice. His heart gave a sudden, painful pull. Slowly, he turned toward the bus stop across the street. A woman sat alone on the bench. An old coat hung loosely around her shoulders. A small bag rested beside her. People passed without looking at her twice. The woman lowered her head, rubbing her hands together against the evening chill. Leo stared. No, it couldn't be. He stepped off the curb, crossed the street, moved closer. The woman finally looked up. The moment their eyes met, the world seemed to stop. Leo felt the breath leave his chest. He knew that face. Older now, tired, marked by difficult years. But he knew it. Ryan. The woman who raised him when he was a lonely child. The woman who defended him. The woman who taught him how to laugh at himself. The woman who made him feel important before success ever entered his life. Ryan. Sitting alone on a public bench, wrapped in an old coat, without a home, without comfort, without anyone noticing, Leo could hardly believe what he was seeing. But the hardest part came a second later. Ryan looked directly at him, and there was no recognition in her eyes. Leo stood frozen on the sidewalk. For years, he had walked through boardrooms filled with powerful people without feeling nervous. He had negotiated deals worth millions. He had spoken before crowds. He had faced reporters, investors, and competitors. Yet at that moment, standing a few feet away from Ryan, he could barely find a single word. Ryan tilted her head. Then she laughed softly. "Well, baby, are you planning to stare at me all night, or are you charging admission for the show?" A few pedestrians glanced over before continuing on their way. Leo swallowed hard. The familiar humor hit him immediately. Even now, even here, she was still trying to make somebody smile. "You okay?" Ryan asked. "You look like you just saw a ghost carrying tax paperwork." Leo almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he kept staring. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The woman sitting on that bench had once been the strongest person in his world. She had protected him when he felt alone. She had encouraged him when nobody else seemed to notice him. She had taught him confidence long before wealth ever entered his life. Now he owned buildings, companies, homes, investments. And Ryan was sitting beside a public bus stop with a worn coat and a small bag. Life suddenly felt unfair in a way money could not explain. Ryan pointed toward a nearby luxury vehicle. "Let me guess, that's yours." Leo nodded. Ryan smiled. "Good. At least one of us is winning tonight." The joke landed, but it hurt, because she still didn't recognize him. Not even a little. Leo opened his mouth. He wanted to say her name. He wanted to tell her who he was. He wanted answers. Instead, all he managed was, "Can I sit down?" Ryan scooted over slightly on the bench. "Sure, bench isn't fancy, but the view is free." And that simple invitation would begin a conversation neither of them expected. Before we continue, let's say a quick prayer. Dear God, thank you for every person listening today. Remind us to appreciate those who helped us become who we are. Give us hearts full of kindness, gratitude, and wisdom. Help us never overlook people simply because life has become difficult for them. Bless every viewer and their families. Amen. Welcome to Love, Money, and Secret, where America's greatest stories and life lessons meet creativity and heart. If you're new to the family, we're grateful to have you here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring more unforgettable stories your way. And before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Please like, share, and subscribe because every interaction helps YouTube recommend these stories to more people who need them. What Leo discovers about Ryan's life will change everything he believes about success. Years before Leo saw Ryan sitting near that Washington, D.C. bus stop, Ryan was the kind of woman people noticed for the right reasons. Not because she wore expensive clothes, not because she had money, because when Ryan walked into a room, people felt safe. In her Washington neighborhood, folks knew her by her laugh before they saw her face. That laugh could travel across a church basement, bounce through a cookout line, and make somebody forget they were having a hard week. On Sunday mornings, Ryan was usually near the church kitchen before most people arrived. She would tie a simple apron around her waist, point at the empty tables, and say, "All right now, don't let me catch nobody acting holy on an empty stomach." Children loved her because she corrected them without making them feel small. "Don't run in here," she would say, snapping her fingers gently. "This is church, not the Olympics. And even if it was the Olympics, you still ain't winning in those shoes." The children would laugh, slow down, and still listen. Adults depended on her too. At neighborhood cookouts, Ryan was the one making sure the older people had seats, the children had plates, and the quiet ones were not forgotten. If someone came late, she would lift foil from a pan and say, "I saved you something because I know life has bad timing." Sometimes Ryan barely had enough for herself, but nobody could tell by the way she gave. If she cooked a pot of beans, she stretched it. If she bought bread, she shared it. If she had only a little chicken, somehow she made it look like dinner for 6. One evening, a child looked at her table and asked, "Miss Ryan, how you always got food for everybody?" Ryan smiled and tapped the side of her head. "Baby, seasoning and faith can multiply anything if you don't panic." People laughed, but many of them knew the truth. Ryan gave even when giving cost her. She helped mothers who were tired. She listened to men who were too proud to admit they were hurting. She corrected children, prayed with neighbors, and made people feel like they still mattered. But while everyone leaned on Ryan, very few asked what she was carrying. And Ryan never made it easy for them to know. She would smile, serve another plate, and say, "Go on, eat. Worrying burns calories, and I'm trying to keep you alive." So while Washington kept moving around her, Ryan kept giving. Even when her own pockets were thin. Even when her body needed rest, even when her own struggles were quietly standing behind her, waiting to be noticed. Ryan spent so many years helping other people that she stopped noticing how often she was putting herself last. At first, it seemed harmless. A neighbor would promise to pay her back for groceries. Another person would borrow money for a week. Someone else would ask for help with rent and swear they would return every dollar. Ryan rarely said no. Not because she was rich, because she believed people deserved a chance. Whenever somebody thanked her, she would wave her hand and say, "Baby, if kindness made people rich, I'd own half of Washington by now." People laughed. Ryan laughed too. But little by little, the pattern started changing. The money she loaned never came back. The favors became expectations. The appreciation became silence. One person stopped answering her calls after receiving help. Another suddenly became hard to find. Others acted as though Ryan would always be there whenever they needed something. Yet Ryan kept going. She told herself people were struggling. She told herself everyone carried burdens. She refused to become hard-hearted. Around the same time, work opportunities became less dependable. Hours were reduced. Temporary jobs disappeared. Promises of future work never turned into actual paychecks. More than once, Ryan showed up expecting work only to learn that plans had changed. "Changed again?" Ryan asked one employer. The answer was a careless shrug. "Sorry, nothing available right now." Ryan forced a smile. "Well, if disappointment starts paying rent, let me know." The joke made the other person laugh. But Ryan walked away knowing another expected paycheck had vanished. Months passed. The financial pressure slowly increased. Then came the medical bills. At first it was one appointment, then another, then prescriptions, then follow-up visits. Every envelope arriving in the mail seemed to carry another amount she could not comfortably afford. Ryan would sit at her kitchen table studying the numbers. Then she would fold the paper, take a deep breath, and move on with her day. Complaining never felt useful to her. One afternoon, a friend noticed she looked tired. "You okay?" Ryan smiled. "I've been better. Need help?" Ryan chuckled. "If I start listing all my problems, we're going to miss dinner." The conversation moved on. Just like that. Ryan had become an expert at hiding her struggles behind humor. What made the situation harder was that she never stopped helping other people. If somebody needed a meal, Ryan showed up. If somebody needed encouragement, Ryan listened. If somebody needed prayer, Ryan prayed. She continued pouring from a cup that was becoming emptier every year. Her savings disappeared. Bills accumulated. The safety she had spent years building became smaller and smaller. Still, bitterness never took root inside her. Whenever life disappointed her, she found a reason to keep moving. Whenever somebody treated her unfairly, she chose grace instead of anger. But determination alone could not stop every problem. Eventually, the pressure became greater than Ryan could carry. The stability she had worked for over many years began slipping away piece by piece. And for the first time, she found herself standing on uncertain ground, facing a future she never expected. Long before Leo became a billionaire in Washington, he was a quiet little boy who spent most of his time feeling invisible. He was not the loudest child. He was not the most popular. Most days he stayed to himself. When other children played together, Leo often stood at a distance, watching, not because he wanted to be alone, Because he never seemed to know where he fit. Ryan noticed. Ryan noticed everything. One afternoon, she found Leo sitting by himself while everyone else laughed and talked nearby. She walked over carrying 2 cups of lemonade. Without asking permission, she sat beside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan handed him a cup. You planning to join the human race today? Leo looked confused. The what? The human race, Ryan said. All those people over there, they seem to be participating. A small smile appeared on Leo's face. Ryan pointed toward the group. You know something? What? Nobody in that crowd is better than you. Leo looked down. They don't really talk to me. Ryan nodded. Sometimes people don't notice good things right away. That doesn't feel fair. Ryan laughed softly. Baby, if life waited around to be fair, we'd all be retired by age 10. Leo laughed despite himself. That was Ryan's gift. She could make difficult truths easier to carry. As the years passed, Ryan became one of the most important influences in Leo's life. Whenever he doubted himself, she corrected him. Whenever he became discouraged, she challenged him. Whenever he made mistakes, she held him accountable. One day, Leo came to her upset after failing at something he had worked. Hard to achieve. I guess I'm not good enough. Ryan immediately shook her head. No, but I failed. You failed once. That's different? Very different. Ryan folded her arms. Failure is an event. It is not a person. Leo stared at her. Ryan continued. Never introduce yourself using your worst day. The lesson stayed with him. Years later, he would repeat those same words to employees without remembering where he first learned them. Ryan taught confidence, but she also taught discipline. If Leo made excuses, Ryan challenged them. If he blamed others unfairly, Ryan corrected him. If he quit too quickly, Ryan pushed him to keep going. Character, she often told him, shows up after motivation leaves. At the time, Leo thought she was simply giving advice. He never realized she was helping build the foundation of the man he would become. Then came one particularly difficult day, a day when Leo felt more defeated than ever before. He sat quietly, staring at the ground while frustration filled his chest. Ryan sat beside him. For several moments, she said nothing. Then she gently nudged his shoulder. Look at me, Leo did. Ryan smiled. You're stronger than this moment. And for the first time all day, Leo believed it. Leo sat beside Ryan on the bus stop bench, trying not to let his emotions show too quickly. Ryan leaned back, studying him with sharp eyes. You always this quiet, she asked. Or did somebody charge you extra? For words tonight? Leo let out a small laugh. No, I'm thinking. Careful with that, Ryan said. Thinking too much will have you ying bills that ain't even due yet. That almost broke him. The humor, the timing, the way she spoke as if life had bruised her, but never defeated her spirit. Leo looked at the small bag beside her feet. Do you stay around here often? Ryan's smile thinned slightly. Depends who's asking. Someone who wants to help. Oh, that's dangerous. Why? Because people who say that usually mean they already decided what kind of help you need. Leo nodded slowly. That's fair. Ryan glanced at his coat, then toward the expensive vehicle waiting across the street. You got money. Leo looked down. I do all right. Ryan laughed. Baby, that car over there costs more than some people's whole apology. Leo smiled, but his chest felt heavy. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded stack of cash. Please take this. Ryan's expression changed immediately. Not angry. Firm. She looked at the money, then back at him. No, Ryan. She froze. Leo realized his mistake. Her eyes narrowed. What did you call me? Leo held his breath. For a second, he thought the truth would come out right there. But Ryan shook her head. Maybe I told you earlier. My memory plays tricks sometimes. Leo slowly put the money away. I'm sorry. Ryan watched him carefully. You seem like a kind man, but don't lead with money. I didn't mean to insult you. I know. That's why I didn't insult you back. Despite himself, Leo smiled. Ryan leaned forward, resting her hands together. Baby, if money fixed everything, rich people wouldn't need therapists. The words hit Leo harder than she knew, because she was right. He had money. He had influence. He had rooms full of people waiting for his opinion. Yet sitting beside Ryan, he felt poorer than he had in years. What happened to you? He asked softly. Ryan looked away. Life. That's not an answer. It's the safest one. Leo waited. Ryan sighed. I worked. I helped people. I trusted some who didn't deserve it. Got sick. Got behind. Lost more than I thought I could lose. Her voice stayed calm, but Leo heard the pain underneath it. Did nobody help you? Ryan smiled without joy. People clapped when I stood strong. Most didn't know what to do when I got tired. Leo stared at the sidewalk. He wanted to tell her everything. That he was the boy she once encouraged. that her words had followed him into adulthood, that every room he conquered had a piece of her strength inside it. But he stopped himself. Ryan did not need a dramatic reveal. Not yet. She needed respect. So Leo stood slowly. Ryan looked up. You leaving already? For now. Rich people always got somewhere to be. Leo looked at her with quiet determination. I'll come back. Ryan gave him a half smile. Bring better conversation next time. Leo nodded. I will. As he walked back toward his vehicle, one thing became clear. He could not fix Ryan's life with cash from his pocket. He needed the truth, and he was going to find it. That night, Leo did not go home with peace in his chest. He sat in the back of his vehicle while Washington moved past the window, but his mind stayed on that bus stop. Ryan's voice, Ryan's coat, Ryan refusing money with the same pride she once used to correct him as a child. By morning, Leo knew one thing clearly. He could not help Ryan properly until he understood what had happened to her, so he began asking questions, carefully, respectfully. He did not want people gossiping about her pain like it was evening entertainment. He started with places Ryan had once mentioned during their conversation: small community kitchens, temporary work offices, church programs, housing support desks. Every answer gave him another piece of the truth. Ryan had worked for years without complaining. Sometimes she cleaned, sometimes she cooked, sometimes she cared for people who needed help. Sometimes she filled gaps nobody wanted to notice. But several people had taken her labor lightly. One office owed her weeks of unpaid wages. Another place promised steady work, used her when they needed extra hands, then stopped calling when payment became inconvenient. Leo stood outside that office, staring at the door with his jaw tight. She worked here? He asked. The person at the desk nodded. For a while, was she paid everything she was owed? The silence that followed answered before the words came. We'd have to check records. Leo's expression hardened. Then check them. The more he learned, the heavier the truth became. Ryan had trusted people who gave promises instead of payment. She had helped families who never returned what they borrowed. She had covered meals, rides, and small emergencies while her own bills waited. Then medical expenses began pressing against her. Not one huge disaster, several smaller ones. Appointment after appointment, prescription after prescription, bills arriving faster than relief. Leo found himself standing outside a community center where people still remembered Ryan warmly. One woman smiled when Ryan's name came up. Ryan? That woman could make a room feel like home. Another person added, she fed folks before feeding herself. A third voice said, children listened to her. Adults too, even when they acted stubborn. Leo listened quietly. To the world passing her on the sidewalk, Ryan looked like another, forgotten woman with a bag. But to the people who remembered her, she had been warmth, correction, laughter, prayer, food, and shelter in human form. That contrast broke something open in Leo. He walked away from the community center and stood beside his vehicle, unable to move for a moment. The woman who helped everyone had ended up with almost no one, standing beside her, and the hardest truth was personal. Ryan had not only shaped a neighborhood, she had shaped him. The confidence he used in boardrooms, the discipline that built his companies, the humor that kept him human, the courage to stand after failure. Those were not things money had taught him. Ryan had planted them long before anyone called him powerful. Leo lowered his head and whispered, I built a whole life from what she gave me. Then he looked back toward the city. This was no longer just about helping Ryan survive one night. He needed to know everything, because somewhere in Ryan's story, something had gone terribly wrong. Leo spent the next several days digging deeper. At first, he expected to find one simple explanation: a missed payment, a bad contract, a mistake. Instead, every answer seemed connected to another question. The more he looked, the clearer it became that Ryan's problems had not appeared overnight. They had been building quietly for years. One afternoon, Leo sat reviewing old housing documents connected to Ryan's case. Most people would have stopped after the first few pages. Leo didn't. Ryan had taught him to finish what he started, so he kept reading, and that was when he found it. Something didn't make sense. A payment record was missing, not delayed, missing. He checked again, then a third time. The same gap remained. Another document referenced funds that should have been applied toward Ryan's housing situation, but the paperwork showed no sign that those funds had ever reached the place they were supposed to go. Leo requested additional records. Hours later, more information arrived. What he found made him sit back in silence. Ryan had been treated unfairly. The evidence was right there. Important paperwork had been mishandled. Critical information had been ignored. Several opportunities existed to prevent her housing situation from becoming a crisis. Instead, mistakes were allowed to continue until the damage became impossible for Ryan to overcome alone. The worst part was realizing that Ryan never fought aggressively for herself, not because she was weak, because she spent most of her energy helping other people. While she was worrying about neighbors, community members, and families around her, nobody was paying close attention to what was happening to her. Leo closed the files slowly, his jaw tightened. This should never have happened. Ryan had done everything right. She worked, she helped others, she carried responsibilities, she kept moving forward even when life became difficult. Yet when she needed fairness, the system failed her. For a long moment, Leo stared through the office window. The Washington skyline stretched across the distance. Buildings, lights, success, status, all the things people chased. But none of it felt impressive right now, because the woman who had taught him character had been left carrying burdens she never deserved, and almost nobody noticed. That realization stayed with him long after sunset. It stayed with him when he returned home. It stayed with him when he tried to sleep. The next morning, he found himself thinking about a question. Not a business question, not an investment question, a human question. How many people like Ryan had changed lives without ever receiving proper recognition? Before we continue, I want to ask everyone watching something important. Have you ever met someone who changed your life and never asked for anything in return? If you have, tell us in the comments. And if this story is touching your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more people discover stories that remind us what truly matters. Leo looked back at the documents one final time. The truth was finally coming into focus. Ryan's situation had not been unavoidable. It had been preventable, which meant something else was true. If injustice helped put her where she was today, then justice needed to become part of the solution. For the first time since seeing Ryan at the bus stop, Leo felt something stronger than sadness. Purpose. He gathered every document, every record, every piece of information. Then he stood up. The investigation was over. Now it was time to act. Leo did not return to Ryan with a stack of cash. He knew better now. Money could buy comfort, but it could not automatically restore dignity. Ryan had already made that clear. So when Leo saw her again near the same Washington bus stop, he approached with a folder in his hand instead of money in his pocket. Ryan looked up and squinted. Well, look who came back. I was starting to think your expensive shoes carried you out of the country. Leo smiled softly. I told you I'd come back. Rich people say many things. Some of them even sound nice before they expire. I deserve that. Ryan studied the folder. What's that? Answers. Her face changed. About me? Yes. Ryan sat straighter. Baby, I don't remember asking you to go digging through my life. I know. Then why did you? Leo took a slow breath. Because something happened to you that should not have happened. Ryan's eyes narrowed. I don't need pity. This isn't pity. Then what is it? Respect. That word made Ryan quiet. Leo sat beside her, leaving space between them. I found records, unpaid wages, mishandled housing paperwork, a payment that should have helped you stay stable but never reached where it was supposed to go. Ryan looked away. For once, she had no joke ready. Leo continued gently. I've already arranged legal support, not charity. Support. What happened needs to be corrected. Ryan gave a short laugh, but it carried pain. Legal support. Baby, I'm sitting at a bus stop with one bag. You think I'm about to walk into somebody's office and start fighting paperwork? You won't be alone. Ryan looked at him quickly. Leo kept his voice steady. I also spoke with people who still remember what you did for this community. There are housing options available immediately. Safe ones. Temporary first, then permanent after the records are corrected. Ryan shook her head. No. Ryan. No. Don't put me somewhere so you can feel better. Leo leaned forward. I'm not trying to feel better. Then what are you trying to do? I'm trying to make sure people stop treating you like you disappeared. Ryan's lips pressed together. For a moment, the city noise moved around them while neither spoke. Then Ryan said quietly, People like me get tired of being somebody's good deed. Leo nodded. I understand. No, you don't. You're right, he said. I don't fully understand. But I'm listening. Ryan turned to him. That answer surprised her. Most people defended themselves. Leo didn't. He opened the folder and showed her only one page. This is yours. This shows money connected to your housing case was not handled properly. You were not careless. You were treated unfairly. Ryan stared at the paper. Her hands trembled slightly. All this time, she whispered, I thought maybe I just missed too much. You didn't. Ryan blinked hard. So what now? Now we correct it. Properly, publicly if you want, quietly if you prefer. You decide. Ryan looked at him for a long time. You keep saying that. What? You decide. You should have been given choices a long time ago. Her eyes softened. That sentence reached somewhere deep. She tilted her head, studying his face again. Why do you talk like that? Leo's heart tightened. Like what? Like somebody I used to know? Leo froze. Ryan leaned closer, her eyes searching his face. There's something about you. She stopped, her voice lowered. Have we met before? Leo did not answer immediately. Ryan kept staring at him, her eyes moving over his face like she was. Searching through years she had packed away. Have we met before? She asked again. Leo's throat tightened. Yes. Ryan leaned back slightly. Where? Leo looked down at his hands. For a man who had spoken confidently in rooms full of wealthy people, this moment made him feel like that lonely boy again. Washington, he said softly. Years ago, Ryan frowned. Washington is big, baby. You gotta do better than that. A small smile touched Leo's face. You used to give a boy lemonade when he sat alone. Ryan became still. Leo continued. You told him nobody in the crowd was better than him. Ryan's lips parted. You told him failure was an event, not a person. Her hand slowly rose to her chest. Leo's eyes grew wet. And on the worst day he could remember, you sat beside him and said, You're stronger than this moment. Ryan stared at him. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she whispered, Leo? He nodded. It's me. Ryan covered her mouth. Oh, Lord. Leo tried to smile, but the emotion caught him. I didn't know what happened to you. Ryan's eyes filled. You were so little. I remembered you. She shook her head slowly, almost unable to believe it. You remembered me? Every lesson. Ryan laughed through her tears. Look at you now, standing there in that coat looking like money. Learned how to walk? Leo let out a broken laugh. Only Ryan could make him cry and laugh in the same breath. I'm serious, he said. You helped raise me. Ryan wiped her face quickly. Don't start making me emotional in public. I still have a reputation to protect. Leo sat beside her again. You protected mine before I even had one. Ryan looked at him, and this time she truly saw him. Not the billionaire, not the polished man from the private dinner, the boy. The lonely child who used to sit quietly until she made space for him. You became somebody, she said softly. Leo shook his head. I became someone because you were somebody first. Ryan looked away, breathing through the weight of his words. I didn't know you carried all that with you. I did, and all this time, I thought life just forgot me. It didn't, Leo said. I did not forget you. Ryan's face trembled. For a moment, the humor left her completely. The years showed in her eyes, the tiredness, the shock, the quiet relief of being remembered by someone she once loved like family. Leo spoke gently. I own companies now. I have resources, influence. People listen when I speak. But none of that matters if I ignore the woman who taught me how to stand. Ryan gave him a look. Don't make me sound too holy. I also told you not to run indoors. You did, and I was right. You were always right. Now don't lie. I was mostly right. They both laughed. But beneath the laughter was something deeper. Ryan reached out slowly and touched his face, as if confirming he was real. You really came back. I didn't come back soon enough. Ryan shook her head. Don't do that. Do what? Punish yourself for what you didn't know. You found me now. Leo nodded, though guilt still sat heavy inside him. I want to help make this right. Ryan looked at the folder between them. You really found proof? Yes, and you're not just trying to tuck me away somewhere quiet? No, I want your name cleared, your housing restored, your story honored. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. My story honored? Yes. She pointed a finger at him. Careful, Leo. I don't need a parade. I know. I don't need people crying over me like I'm some sad song. I know. And I better not see my face on some giant screen looking tired. Leo smiled. Understood. Ryan folded her arms. But if there's food involved, I'll consider behaving. There can be food. Good. Justice should not happen on an empty stomach. Leo laughed again, and this time it felt lighter. For the first time since he found her, Ryan did not look like a woman. Being approached by a stranger, she looked like someone who had finally found a piece of home. Ryan looked at him and shook her head in wonder. The little boy with the sad eyes became a billionaire. Leo looked back at her, and the woman who saved him is finally going to be seen. Ryan's smile softened. For years she had carried life alone, But sitting beside Leo, with the truth finally spoken and the past finally standing in front of her, she understood something she had not allowed herself to believe. She was not alone anymore. Justice did not arrive with noise. It arrived with documents, signatures, corrected records, and the quiet. Power of truth, finally being taken seriously. Leo made sure Ryan was present for every important step. He did not speak over her. He did not make her stand behind him. He did not turn her pain into a performance. When the people responsible for mishandling her housing records were. Forced to review the evidence, Ryan sat beside Leo with her hands, folded in her lap. Her back was straight. Her face was calm. But Leo could see the strength it took for her to sit in that room. For years, Ryan had wondered if she had simply failed herself. Now the paperwork proved something different. She had been failed. A missing payment was finally acknowledged. Ignored information was corrected. Unpaid wages were documented. The housing case that had pushed her into instability was reopened properly. Ryan listened without interrupting. When one person tried to soften the mistake with careful words, Ryan lifted one eyebrow. Baby, if you step on somebody's foot, don't start explaining how shoes work. Just say you stepped on it. A safe home was approved for her immediately, with permanent support. Just people finally hearing the truth about a woman many had once. The room went quiet. Leo lowered his head to hide a smile. That was Ryan. Still sharp, still honest, still refusing to let people dress unfairness in polite language. By the end of that meeting, Ryan's situation was publicly corrected. Not with pity, with facts. The unpaid wages were scheduled for repayment. Her housing record was cleared, following after the corrected process was completed. Ryan stared at the final document for a long moment. So this means I'm not sleeping outside tonight? Leo's voice softened. No, not tonight. Not anymore. Ryan blinked quickly. Good, she said, trying to sound casual, because that bus stop and I were starting to have relationship problems. Leo laughed gently, but Ryan's hand trembled when she signed the paper. Later, Leo stood with her at a small community gathering in Washington. There were no fancy speeches, no cold luxury setting, depended on. Leo stepped forward and looked at Ryan. I used to think success meant having more than everyone else, he said, but Ryan taught me something different long before I understood it. She taught me that character is what you give when nobody can repay you. Ryan looked down, emotional but trying to stay composed. Leo continued. She helped shape the man I became, whatever success people see in. Me today, part of it started with her kindness, her discipline, and her belief in a lonely boy who needed someone to notice him. Ryan wiped one tear before anyone could comment. Don't make me cry in public, Leo. I wore my strong face today. You still have it, Leo said. That evening, Leo drove Ryan to her new home. It was not a mansion. It was better than that. It was safe, clean, quiet. Hers. Ryan stood at the front door for several seconds before turning the key. Her lips pressed together. Leo waited. He would not rush this moment. Ryan opened the door slowly and stepped inside. She looked around, touched the wall, and whispered, Lord, I got somewhere to come back to. Leo stood behind her, silent. Ryan took one more step into the room. For the first time in a long time, she was not entering a temporary place. She was entering home. Ryan did not rebuild her life all at once. She rebuilt it in small, beautiful pieces. The first morning in her new home, she woke up early and sat on the edge of the bed for several minutes, just listening to silence. No traffic rushing beside her, no cold bench beneath her, no fear that someone would ask her to move, just peace. When Leo arrived later with groceries, Ryan opened the door and stared at the bags in his hands. Leo. Yes? You better not have bought the whole store. I bought a few things. Ryan looked inside one bag. Baby, this is not a few things. This is a refrigerator with ambition. Leo laughed and carried the groceries inside. I didn't know what you liked. You could have asked. I wanted to be helpful, Ryan pointed at him. We talked about this. Helpful does not mean taking over. Leo stopped immediately. You're right. Ryan's face softened. That was what changed between them. Leo listened now, not like a man used to giving orders, like a man learning love through respect. Over the next few weeks, Ryan's life became steady again. Her records were corrected, her unpaid wages came back, her housing support was secured. People who once spoke over her now had to acknowledge the truth, but Ryan refused to become bitter. I don't have time to carry anger around, she told Leo one afternoon. I just got an address again. I need my hands free. Leo smiled. You're really happy about that address. Ryan lifted her chin. Happy? Baby, I almost introduced myself to the mailbox. Leo laughed. Their bond grew stronger with every visit. Sometimes Leo came by just to talk. Sometimes Ryan cooked simple meals and made him sit down like he was still that quiet boy who needed looking after. One evening, He stood in her kitchen doorway watching her stir a pot. Ryan glanced over. "Why are you standing there looking emotional?" Leo swallowed. "I was just thinking, that sounds expensive. You really did raise me." Ryan paused. The room became quiet. Leo stepped closer. "I don't mean legally, I mean in the ways that mattered. You taught me how to stand up straight, how to speak with confidence, how to treat people like they had value before they proved anything." Ryan looked down at the pot. "I just loved you the way a child should be loved. That saved me." Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. "Come here." Leo moved closer. Ryan touched his cheek gently. "You became a good man, Leo. Not perfect. Don't get excited." He laughed softly. "But good," she continued, "and good matters more than rich." Leo nodded. "I know that now." "No," Ryan said. "You're learning it now. Knowing takes practice." That line stayed with him. And Leo did practice. He changed how he treated people. He listened more. He stopped measuring rooms by status and started noticing who was being ignored. He gave quietly. He showed up without needing applause. Ryan noticed. One day, she smiled and said, "Look at you, acting like somebody raised you right." Leo grinned. Somebody did. As months passed, Ryan's home became warm with life again. Not crowded, not loud, but full of peace. Leo became family in a way neither of them expected. No blood tied them together. No paperwork explained it. But love had already done what blood sometimes fails to do. It had stayed. One evening, Ryan and Leo sat near the window after dinner. Ryan looked around her home and shook her head. "I still can't believe this is mine." "It is. I got a key, a mailbox, and a place to complain about dust. That's how you know life is improving." Leo smiled. "Thank you." Ryan turned to him. "For what?" "For raising me when you didn't have to." Ryan's smile faded into something tender. "Baby, love doesn't always ask if it has to. Sometimes it just sees a child sitting alone and makes room." Leo lowered his head. Ryan reached over and squeezed his hand. "And you came back. That matters too." He looked at her. "I should have found you sooner. You found me when it counted." For a while, neither spoke. The quiet felt full, not empty. Ryan finally said, "Family isn't always the people who share your name." Leo nodded. "Sometimes it's the person who remembers who you were before the world clapped for you." Ryan smiled. "And sometimes it's the person who fed you lemonade and told you not to act pitiful." Leo laughed. "That too." And that was how Ryan, the woman the world had nearly forgotten, found her way back to dignity, safety, and belonging. And Leo, the billionaire who thought success was measured by wealth, learned that the richest part of his life had been planted long before money ever found him. Sometimes, the people who change our lives are the same people the world forgets to notice, until someone remembers. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to Love, Money, and Secret for more powerful American stories filled with lessons, love, and hope. Also, tell us in the comments, who is one person who helped shape your life and deserves to be remembered?